back and law enforcement.
So how long will it take for the community? So it'll take a year to just, if it's approved in November, it'll start being collected kind of mid-23. And so then once we have resources, we need to do the hiring and get people on board. And it takes, I don't know anymore, but I think a year to put a deputy on the street. Is that about right?
Yeah, it's actually a little bit worse than that. I'm sorry, I'm not going to. I'm not going to make any promises. I'm not going to make any promises we can't get. But the reality is, right now, if we can hire 100 deputies, I don't know if the best place to throw them is in the jails or in the streets, because one of the issues we're running into is it's like whack-a-mole. So our staffing is so bad. Every time we throw someone in jail, we lose someone.
So we need to solve the detentions deputy. We need to recruit detentions deputies so we can get our sheriff's deputies out in the streets and on parole, and those are two pieces of the kind of law enforcement staffing that are really critical. But it takes time, you're right. But I can tell you, if you don't do anything, it's going to be worse, because our available funding, we are projecting to continue to decline, and that means living within our means with less resources. And the jail is a mandated function for the sheriff.
I agree in that increased tax, it helps the community. But again, like you say, sometimes what it really discourages the community when the county or the state, when a political is running for official for the position in the county or any part of the state, they only see one time, and the rest we never see them again. So this is one of the issues that unfortunately our community is poor people that spend most of the time in the road to go back and forth to work, and they don't have the time to attend the meetings. And so they really know what's going on until they got hammered with the tax increase. That's it. There's nothing they can do, unfortunately.
Yeah. So we will be holding some virtual meetings too. So if people miss this but want to participate, we'll have some online that they can participate in. So we know not everyone can be at our pre-scheduled meetings. So we'll be sure to get the word out there. As far as people coming in and asking for your vote, I want to be really clear. That's not what we're doing. We are here to explain to you why the Board of Supervisors put this measure on the ballot, what the financial issues underlying that drove to that decision, and what it would mean for the community, and answer your questions. We are not advocating for you to vote one way or the other.
Well, there wasn't.
You have the microphone. Why don't you go ahead?
Mine was not so much a question, but I think it's a great measure. We can only hope that the funds are used wisely, especially for law enforcement, because it is hurting our businesses. I'm a business owner. I lived here in Rosamond for over 20 years. A lot of you know me from the bank, Antelope Valley Bank. Where did the bank go? It left. And now I opened an immigration office, and I work directly with Department of Homeland Security. The same thing is happening to them. They have a backlog, they don't have staff, everything's taking long. So things like this have to happen for it to get better. And hopefully it does get better, because it is hurting our businesses. I managed the Rosamond Plaza, and all the business owners got together, and we were thinking of hiring private security, and that's costing us over $300 a month for all of us. And they're willing to pay it, because what's going to happen, all the businesses are going to leave, and it's going to hurt the population here in Rosamond. So I think it's a great measure.
Thank you. That gentleman in the back had a question.
Hi, my question is twofold. So first of all, is the hiring of new officers, fire and police, is that a recruiting and retention problem, or is it a financial problem? And if it's the first, which is what I'm hearing, how will an increased tax help that? Because you've already got the money there. Second of all, as far as I was under the understanding, it's the county's responsibility to provide services across the county. And so if it's already been stated that the majority of our money through sales tax goes into incorporated areas, why isn't this tax being considered across the incorporated areas as well in order to leverage all the money back out to the community?
Yeah, so good question. So on your first comment, I think it's both. The fiscal issue is related to recruitment and retention. So we need to spend more money on the recruitment efforts and think differently about that, but we also need to be able to pay more to be able to be competitive with other agencies and to do things like considering a housing stipend to get deputies to live in areas that they serve. So we need to be more creative in that, but we need more resources in order to do it. So does that make sense?
It does, but raising the salaries doesn't give you more people, right? Because now you're just spending more on each person.
So
And so when you talked about LA County defunding the police and all of that, what we saw here was the police were defunded in our substation clubs. So that's what we saw within our own county. So there's no guarantees necessarily that even if the money gets voted on by the community group that you mentioned to go to the Kern County Sheriff Department, that they will decide to use that money back into reopening the substation.
So we have vacancies right now, right? That we have funded vacancies that we can't fill because we're not competitive with compensation. So we need to be able to raise that compensation level so that we can be more competitive and fill those vacancies. So does that?
It makes sense, I just don't know if that really works. I mean, if you don't have people here that are qualified and wanting to do that job, paying them a little bit more might be some, but I don't know that it really.
Yeah, so it's a marketplace. And you heard from the DA a minute ago that she's losing 2 attorneys to LA County.
Riverside.
Why? Because they're outbidding us. They pay more, and she's losing employees. The same thing is happening in the sheriff's department. We're losing deputies to other agencies, and frankly, fire. And so, that's the issue.
I agree. I come from a family that's fire and police as well, and we all know that those types of public service include teachers and things don't necessarily do it for the money. They do it to serve their own communities, right? So
Yes.
I don't think,
That's right.
I think it's pretty difficult to ask someone to move from Ventura to Rosamond because you're going to pay a little bit more.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think that the DA has a comment.
Bakersfield City passed Measure N, which is a tax initiative that would be the same as ours, and they are taking our deputies. They're going to work for the Bakersfield Police Department, and they are now over 91%, only 9% vacancy, so they're making tremendous inroads in doing that. I don't want to lose any more of our deputies because Bakersfield, Delano, Shafter, McFarland police departments pay more than the Kern County Sheriff's Department. The sheriff had to close so many different units, like the game unit. The Sheriff's Department has a fabulous history of really doing such an amazing job for the community. It is really terrible what is happening until those deputies that we have invested in and trained to go, no offense, to Shafter, because they pay more.
I used to work in Shafter. That's where that comment came from. And we did. And we stole them because we paid more, and then we intentionally paid more.
Not to keep arguing, but the natural resources you talked about that the state policies are making us lose money on basically in the county, were all that revenue was only going to unincorporated areas?
No.
Exactly. So that point is you're leveraging a new tax on only unincorporated areas to cover that amount that you're losing. That was the whole premise. But yet we're spending our money in Bakersfield. So we should be asking Bakersfield as well and the other incorporated areas to help pay for the unincorporated services.
So we receive tax money in incorporated cities also.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't say that we're using tax revenue from Rosamond to fund services in incorporated cities.
No, I didn't mean it that way.
Okay.
I said that because of the premise of this new measure
Yes.
is because we're losing money for the natural resources.
Correct.
Yeah. But the natural resources money wasn't only going to unincorporated areas.
I understand. Yes.
So now
Our money is going to us. $90 million a year just goes to us. And then the city gets their own.
Yeah, but now, the new tax that's being, the measure,
Yes,
is only unincorporated.
and would only fund
Right.
services in unincorporated areas.
Right, but my point is that you're offsetting the revenue from the,
Yeah, I think I see what you're.
you had this money from natural resources
Yeah.
that was going to pay everyone in the county.
Yes.
No, our portion is the portion we're talking about, Susan. So there's another 20 million that goes to the city. We're not talking about, we're talking $90 million is strictly goes to the unincorporated areas. That's all we're talking about losing. There's other money, it's almost $280 million total. So there's all this other money coming from other places. So we're not losing, and we're not talking about any of the money that the city's losing. But I think it's a good point.
But are the
So let's-
cities also looking at a 1%?
So let me-
increase
so
for
let-
this program?
They just
Yeah.
don't have as much. Some of them aren't.
So yes, 6 of the cities already have it. Actually, 3 more are on the ballot. Okay, so Tehachapi, who doesn't have a measure in place, McFarland doesn't have a measure in place, so they're both looking to do the same thing. And Ridgecrest is going to add another 1%. So Ridgecrest would actually, if this measure passes on their ballot, would be at 9.25%. Now Ridgecrest is a very unique. The financial tax base for Ridgecrest is unique because of the federal base. That's everything there is non-taxable. So a lot of their economy is not taxed at all, which is just unlike anything else that we deal with. But my point is, yeah, everyone they are all looking at it with a few exceptions. We did talk about whether or not to do a total tax on the county. Maybe you do 0.5% on everything, including the cities. The concern is, we are concerned with being able to provide services in these unincorporated areas that have no city resources to support them. They're wholly reliant on us, right? And that's our concern. And when we looked at the numbers and we looked at the polling, we didn't want to risk losing a measure because people didn't want to pay more tax on top of Bakersfield's measure and money, and then miss out on an opportunity to raise local revenues for our unincorporated services, for people like here in Rosamond, because the funding that we've got and the service levels we're providing now are not good enough, in our opinion. You know, that's ultimately a decision that the voters are going to make. They're not good enough. And so we think a better strategy is to simply go raise up to match the cities, let the cities deal with their own issues, with their own local taxes, and let us worry about our unincorporated residents like you folks in Rosamond. And that's why the funding's dedicated to provide for these types of services. Frankly, there are certain, not to get too in the weeds here, but there are services, like in the sheriff's department, that are mandated by law. He has to operate the jail, right? So he has to, that's a legal mandate. He doesn't have to patrol. So if he runs short on money, he has to staff the jail. He doesn't, so where does the service reduction? It's in patrol. And that affects our unincorporated areas because we don't patrol incorporated cities. We only patrol in unincorporated areas. So that's why, we see a need for this funding here. But I understand your point, and it hasn't gone without thought on how we deal with the county as a whole. So. Yes, sir.
I understand the concern about, what about Rosamond, wanting to keep the money here. Actually, we've done pretty well from the county. Do we have everything that we want or need here? No. But we have the newest fire truck, I think, or one of the newest fire trucks. We have some of the streets that we needed to have paved, were corrected. We've got a good library. I really appreciate y'all coming out tonight and explaining these kinds of things, because up until now, I had just assumed that the shortage of firefighters and law enforcement was due to the requirement that in addition to having those skills, you also had to have, of course, the movie star good looks. Was I wrong about that?
Is that why you didn't get hired, Dennis?
That's exactly it. Right into this day, pal. Let me tell you. And could we maybe get the cheaper upholstery? $1.5 million seems like an awful lot of those trucks. Oh my God. But let's face it, I mean, this is late for these folks, and don't we appreciate them coming out and explaining this to us? Thank you very much.
So thank you all. I will stay as long as people have questions. So we can close the meeting down and let people go, but I'm happy to stay and talk with you if you want. And I just encourage you, if you're interested, go to our website. There's a lot of information about Measure K, the Kern County, public safety, vital services, local control measures. So thank you all for coming out. I appreciate
I
it.
just got one more question.
Why don't you come on up? We can talk.
Okay, so let me go ahead and finish the meeting real quick. Let me close the meeting real quick. Okay? Just 2 more minutes, guys, 2 more minutes. We do have somebody from Edwards Air Force Base that would like to speak to us as a community, so I'm going to turn the floor to them. Excuse me.
We're not done. You know, in October, we're going to have an air show.
Yeah, we're not
It's going
done.
to affect the town. Let's hear what they have to say.
Thank you. So I'm Danny Bazell. I've owned a home here in Rosamond for 30-some years. My son lives here now, and I live down below. I am the Chief of Community Engagement for Edwards Air Force Base. Dennis finally decided to retire, and I was able to take over his job. But we do have an air show coming up and a big STEM Expo, October 14th, 15th, and 16th. How many of you were here back in 2009 when we had that air show? Okay, so this is the people we want to talk to. So I'm going to bring up Major Sam Freeland. He is our air show executive director. Is that the right title? Director. He is the air show director. So he's heading up this whole thing, and he's going to talk about the traffic control with this air show coming up and other things.
Yes, so October 15th and 16th, open to the general public for those of you who are not DoD card holders. Otherwise, the 14th is going to be open to those who normally have access to the base as a rehearsal, kind of a dry run for them. And then a huge component for us this year, too, is our STEM Expo. The Friday, we're actually opening up that schools across Kern, LA County, and the local area. And the initial interest count was 10 to 11,000 students. So really using a lot of those Edwards technical expertise and resources and targeting students to learn and inspire, whether they want to be in the Air Force or whatever they want to do to kind of serve their country in the future and give back there. That we are able to give one of our largest buildings on Edwards dedicated to that. Currently 50 to 60 STEM Expo booths with hands-on activities for kids. So for those of you who have kids who think that would be great there, I know I told my son that there's a robotics field and now he has to go. So. But I saw a lot of hands for 2009, so I think one of the primary concerns, if anyone remembers that, is traffic. I think in 2020, when they were drafting a plan to do it again, hired a professional parking consultant to get some numbers. I think one of the challenges, especially in the military background, is we are not experts in large traffic events. That's not necessarily what I'm trained to do. I safely operate an aircraft is what I get to do as my primary job. So we hired somebody, we got some expertise in that, and I think we've have a much better assessment of the limitations just associated with Edwards and a military installation that is obviously not built to say, how many people can we get on here in a day? That is not the purpose, right? The other 362 days a year, the goal is security and vetting people. So we currently know what our capabilities and limitations are, and we have some cutoff points. We also have significantly improved capabilities now with communicating with the general public to let them know what that capacity is, whether it be through our social media. We have an app that'll be rolling out here. We'll try to encourage people to subscribe to alerts so we can communicate with them on traffic situations so they know where it stands, and they can make informed decisions about trying to attend the show. Vehicle messaging systems, we've got permits for those along the local highways, so back towards Avenue A, D, people back in there, when we start to reach those capacity limits, we can make that decision and we can inform people so they can turn around. Another big one, big thanks, had a meeting with California Highway Patrol last week, and just the lights and traffic through the town, that they're going to be manning a lot of those intersections, and you'll have somebody there who can assess that situation and help traffic get in and out of there. Because Rosamond, just looking at the lights and the structure and that professional assessment, it is a choke point for the amount of people who are going to try to flow through here. So I think some of our biggest assets is communicating that, having our decision points, and being able to reach out to people before they create those problems. Because Edwards definitely is not made to turn cars around either too. And I think that was a 2009 challenge. Have a lot of space to put people, but once they're there, they're kind of committed as far as how much traffic backed up the base, and when they did make those decisions, what they had. So we're backing up a lot of those decision points and identifying targeted areas where when we do inform people, either at an exit, that they have the ability to turn around. Because I've heard a lot of inputs. I'm not sure if some of you have 4 or 5 hour wait times without making it in, and then you turn around and you make that decision on your own, and nobody had any kind of feedback on what the situation was or what they could have done to make it better. October 17th, 2009 was the last show. We have a 2-day show too. So as far as that demand too, spreading it out over 2 days should also get more people in. One, the general public and everybody in Rosamond, give you better chances to attend, and also alleviate some of those pressures by giving people 2 choices. And if they get there early and we communicate on the first day they couldn't get into the air show, that they will have the next day as well as a backup, and they'll probably be the same situation, how early they need to get there. Those are some of our major challenges, things we've addressed, but I really think it's just going to be a great event. So I also would like to encourage everyone to come out there if you get the opportunity, specifically with being located here in Kern County. Your transit times and ability to get in there, your odds go up significantly of being able to attend the event. We would love to have you all there. It is the Aerospace Valley Air Show. So we are trying to incorporate, it is not the Edwards Air Show. It is for all these people, and I definitely didn't grow up in a community like this. The amount of ties to the aerospace industry around here, and some of that fanaticism and enthusiasm that we're tapping into there. Just when I tell people in my neighborhood and everywhere they work and what they do, they're just feeding kind of off that energy. So I appreciate everyone's support as well too in the local communities, and recognize that there will be some traffic stresses and everything like that, but I think it's well worth it in the end, especially an installation like Edwards, where you pass the gate and you have to drive about another 20 miles, to get there, that we're kind of out of sight, that you don't get that. And I'm very proud to be able to open up our gates and share them with the public and show, because I get to go to work every day and sit out there and peek out my window once in a while, and I get an air show every day. And we're so remote that I don't feel like anyone else really gets to enjoy that all the time. So it's really a pleasure for everyone at Edwards to be able to open that up, and families and everyone who wears the uniform and all our civilian employees to be able to open that up and share with you what we do. So I'd like to also open it up for questions, or if there's a concern you think we're not addressing or we could probably do better with.
Without traffic, how long would it take to get to where the air show is from here?
From
You said
here?
it was like another 20 miles after you get on the coast.
Oh, I can answer that. 30 miles. It's 8.5 miles. Once you see the sign that says "Welcome to Edwards" down here, 8.5 miles to the guard shack. It's another 7.5 miles then to the general's headquarters building, and the entry points are near that. So it's into the 15 miles.
Yes.
30.
30 is probably a good planning factor if everything's moving.
Pack a lunch.
Bring it there. 30 minutes is probably a good planning factor until traffic saturation happens as well too, because it's kind of a gamble on how long that'll take. We're looking to put in some messaging as well at our entrance, and possibly track a few cars, plant some people and say, hey, let us know how long your commute takes, and then feeding that information back through our social media and our applications. Hey, if you're at this point, I know some people here have probably been Yosemite, where it says, hey, you're 2 hours from point X. We don't do this every day of the year to have as much data as Yosemite does to say you're 2 hours from this event. But if we have a couple people plant at the gate and say, hey, when did you get to the lake bed to park? And how long did that take you? We can feed that back to some of our tracking points and our signs, specifically right at the Edwards sign or at the entrance, to give people current estimates if things are moving in steady state around a half hour. So.
Now, is the gates going to be open? Is there any security concerns when you go in there? Are people just going to be constantly going through?
Yeah, there's always security concerns, right? It's probably taken a majority of my meetings is kind of addressed to that, because it is very unique, and with any military installation, and those programs where the traffic's gonna be guided, our intersections will have traffic control points to monitor.
No, I mean,
We'll
getting onto the
make sure
base, are they just gonna wave people through, or they're gonna?
wave through.
Okay.
Yep. If somebody's not telling you to stop, they're going to be sending you on through. So we are going to be maximizing that. We've added an additional lane, kind of a counterflow concept to increase our capacity through the gates to be able to support that. So.
They are on the lookout for people with goatees.
And then,
So,
I rest my case.
and you can go to our website, avairshow.com for current stuff. And I know they're recently reviewing the prohibited items list to make sure that'll give you a good essay. Everyone will get processed through an entry control point with a metal detector, and there will be teams there doing that for safety purposes. So, yes.
So, Sam, so in the 2009 air show, personally, I've been to every air show in Edwards since 1967. So, one of the biggest issues during the 2009 was the sheer volume of people that wanted to come out to it. But once they got on the base, they were checking cars. They were looking for, they were doing security checks on the vehicles as they came in, which backed everybody up into Palmdale and into Mojave. When it came to parking them out on the lake bed, they only had 1 to 2 entry points? One entry point into the parking lot. So when you've got this massive flow of vehicles and they're going through one gate, that's where the backup occurred. So this year, Sam and the parking consultant and all that, and everybody else on base are civil engineers. They've got multiple entry points onto the lake bed. We're bringing in, if you live north of Rosamond Boulevard, the only way you're going to get to the air show is to go around through Mojave to the north gate, which actually is the quickest one to get onto the lake bed. So even if you live south of the gate, take Don Road and go on up there, get around to the north gate. That'll get you in faster, most likely. South gate will be closed to only air show personnel. So keep that in mind if you live, well, you're all Rosamond people, but the people in Lancaster won't be able to get in through the south gate. As he said, we have 3 lanes inbound once you hit that sign. The 4th lane has to be left open for emergency vehicle access. And then the same thing on the exit at the end of the day. It'll be 3 lanes outbound and 1 lane inbound. So that with Kern County Roads has agreed to reset the timers on the lights, right? Or are they all going to be flashing?
We initially engaged with Caltrans for the lights here, and they said it was pretty easy to give favoritism to traffic traveling east and west on Rosamond, and they would increase the green. But that's when California Highway Patrol came in with authority, because they have the bodies there to manage the traffic. So being on site, they can exercise their authority to wave that traffic through, and if they identify it, they'll be able to go to flashing red for those trying to cross north to south to prioritize air show traffic to get them through.
And we're cutting it off 45,000 people a day, right? That's our intent.
We anticipate if it's steady flow, about the most we could get on there is 45,000. If that demand is steady from the beginning of gate opening until we would need to close it to give people a chance to turn around.
Well, I for one appreciate all the effort going into that, because for the 2009 air show, the guy on the base that I felt sorry for was the guy who got all the complaint calls.
And that was Dennis.
That would be me.
Okay. And now Andy's got it, so I'm trying not to do that to him.
Now it's okay. But it was, I don't give him my number. There were hundreds of complaints, and for every person that calls, there are dozens more that don't. So,
and it was all traffic related.
It was all traffic related.
So on that flyer, there's a barcode or a QR code. If you scan that, it's not going to take you to the air show website. It's going to take you to a form, because we need volunteers. We need a lot of volunteers to help with traffic control, trash control, fog control, just all the logistics. We can't take our cops and have them picking up stuff, and moving things around. We need volunteers. So if you're interested in volunteering, that's an easy way to get you into the air show, and you'll have to work while the show's going on. But
yeah, there's a lot of other opportunities logistically set up and stuff too. We'll be identifying, got a lot of stuff to just set up in preparation for it too. And I know the folks on base would appreciate it when we're looking at how many people are in your organization. Okay, we're going to need them all, but when we do get volunteers, we have opportunities to offset that or utilize them in different ways, because it is a full team effort for the number of people. Our estimates are around 2,500 volunteers. Constructive Edwards is about 2,500 active duty civilians and about 8,000, or active duty folks and about 8,000 civilians. Trying to meet that versus our organizational structure is a challenge, and volunteers really help us with that. And then also kind of that Aerospace Valley Air Show concept too, of your involvement, making it more of a community event. We want to be involved. We want to share that with everybody. So.
Thank you so much.
And we're here for afterwards if
Yeah.
anyone has questions. That way you guys can wrap your meeting up.
Thank you so much. I appreciate
Thank you
it.
for the time, everybody.
You're
Thank you.
welcome.
Appreciate it.
One more, we're gonna do Kern County Sheriff's statistics real quick, and then we're gonna close out our meeting.
All right, I appreciate everyone's patience.
Thank you.
All right, so real quick, I know it's been a tough month for the community. As far as that fire goes at Glendower Park, as soon as that was discovered, I got a phone call from Supervisor Scrivener's office. So we do have our finger on the heartbeat. Real quick, since January 21st to midnight, the Sheriff's Office has had over 1,000 calls for service. I say over 1,000 because anytime we hit 1,000, it's hard to keep track and get a reliable number out of that. Out of those thousands, that 1,000 calls for service, 41 of them were from Rosamond. So that's you people calling 911, or you guys calling the non-emergency number and saying, hey, someone's breaking into my neighbor's house. Out of those 41 calls for service, 15 people were arrested, and out of those, in addition to the 41 calls for service, we also had 4 officer on-site initiated things. That would be a deputy driving around Rosamond, seeing something that requires law enforcement action that hasn't been reported. And as far as comparison of here to the rest of the county, Boron, 2 arrests, Mojave, 8 arrests, Tehachapi, 10 arrests, and Rosamond, 15. The majority of the calls for service that we got out of those 41 for that month would have been, unfortunately, domestic violence, assault and battery, crimes involving firearms such as shootings, grand theft, vehicle theft, and then 1 death investigation. I'll be around after to speak. I know we're running short on time.
Thank
so,
you, I appreciate
but
it so much.
Everyone's got my email address.
Thank you so much, you guys, for enduring this. Okay, we're gonna move on to director's referral and comments. Dennis, do you have anything for us today?
Oh, I'm still hoping that we can get someone from Lorelei's office to come and give us a basic briefing on how the environmental process works. And would love to get the Union Pacific folks to come in and talk about the hazards of back-grade crossings. Other than that, no.
Okay, I will definitely write that down and check into that. Janine?
Nothing at this time, thank you.
Okay. Brittany?
No, thank you.
Anything at this time? The only thing I have to say is I am looking forward to welcoming Mr. McKay to our team. I'm excited about that. We have, yes, very excited about that. Election time is coming. I did re-register to rerun another year, so I'm hoping you guys will vote for me, Lisa Chuckley. And it's gonna be a great year. Okay, staff comments. Do we have any staff comments today? No? Okay, so I am looking for someone to make a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
So moved, in a second.
Hang on.
Tim?
Lisa, who else is up for election this year?
There is myself, Brennan,
No,
So no,
I will not be seeking
Janine,
re-election.
I am.
and Bill Parkman.
Okay.
So there's 4 of us up for re-election. Does everybody agree to adjournment?
Yes.
Yep.
We are adjourned at 8:37.